This conference is brought to you by CallStack, a total software engineering consultancy.
Oh man, I am so excited to be here at React Universe Conf. This is my first time actually, and today we're going to be talking about something that I think is actually super exciting. So let's just jump right into it. It can take about 5 to 15 hours for your iOS app to be approved for beta testing, and it's no different on Android. So it's no wonder that when developers want to validate an idea quickly with a large audience, they turn to the web. You can deploy with the web like worldwide in seconds, not hours. And this is why we see so many successful products like ChatGPT start with the web and then add native later on. But building a native app can be kind of painful, and the stacks are totally different. There are many things that make web development great, and those just simply don't even exist on native. It's going to be things like file-based routing. And this is why React and React Native have become so popular. React Native is the #1 open source framework for building content-driven iOS applications. But anyone who's tried React Native knows it is absolutely not React for native. There are so many massive gaps between the two technologies. It's very difficult to go from a React website to a React Native app. But it doesn't have to be, and after today, it won't be. So I'm Evan Bacon. I am the creator of Expo Router. It is the first file-based framework for building React apps that run on both web and native from a shared code base. By simply creating files in the app directory, Expo Router instantly creates robust navigation for both your native app and your website. It uses familiar web APIs like link and href to move between routes. And it's also a nested router, which means that you can define shared elements like drawers, tabs, and stacks that work across different screens. And it uses native primitives like UI navigation controller on Apple devices, pure UI kit, to ensure that transitions and gestures and optimizations all feel truly native because they are truly native. When you push a screen with React Native, there's no JavaScript involved. It just pushes that screen. So feels like magic. And we're actively working on universal React server components, which enable full data fetching across all platforms, along with static and server rendering. This means that you can partially render views on the server, all while remaining fully interactive with complex native functionality. To learn more about Expo's React Server Components implementation, I highly recommend you check out my talk at ReactConf 2024, where I did this AI live demo that we see over here. We're rendering content and streaming it down. So altogether, Expo Router bridges many gaps between web and native, enabling you to leverage all of your existing web dev knowledge to target the exact platform that you want to build for. But what about apps that are already written? I'm talking, of course, about brownfield projects. Millions of fantastic React websites already exist today. Do they have to start from scratch to become universal or truly native? What if there was a way to incrementally migrate your existing website to a universal React app without starting over? Well, that is what I'm about to show you right now, live. I'd like to just get into the live coding part as quick as possible. So let's just pop over here, change my my screen settings like this. All right, so you can see my desktop. Let's go. Okay. So I went over to ShadCN UI. If you're not familiar with ShadCN, it is this fantastic set of pre-built components for the web. It uses Radix and Tailwind, very composable. It has all these, these are just like beautiful elements that you can come in here and copy and paste. It's also kind of why a lot of modern websites look the same. So you can come in here, you can grab some of these, you can drop them into your projects. So that's exactly what I did. I went over to my Expo Router project, and then I copied in some of these elements. So things like Tailwind, PostCSS, they all work. It's very responsive. It's even optimized for mobile. Right there, we have this drawer, then we can switch between different routes. Let's see, pull this open. Switch between, we've got some charts in here. Even these are kind of responsive. So just a lot of functionality, very easy to make something beautiful. And I can deploy this to my users, and I can find some product market fit, and rest is history, right? But what I really want to do is I want, when I hit this button, this Create New Order button, for it to show push notifications to the user, like truly native push notifications that are interactive, and I can send attachments. And I also want a home screen widget, and I want quick actions, and maybe I want to interact with the dynamic island. I want a lot of functionality that is only available if I'm in the App Store, if I build a truly native app. But I do have something here which works on mobile web. I have mobile web users, and they like this. Do I have to start from scratch to get that functionality? Kind of. This is an Expo Router project. Have all the code here, so I can just open it here on iOS. So I've built a dev client here, got the CLI running down here, hit iOS, the I button, opens it on iOS, and voila, we get a bunch of errors, right? This error that you get right here is when you try to render a path HTML element or a div or something. We could probably make this error a bit better. Another error is that the word logs doesn't even show. We have to click, OK, whatever. So yeah, that kind of sucks. The reason it doesn't work is because if I come over here to my component, my shadcn code, and I scroll through it, we can see it's just a ton of web code, tons and tons and tons. It's so easy to copy code from the internet. Tons and tons, so much web code. So what if if I have to rewrite all that, it's going to be a nightmare. So what if I could just go to the top here and write use DOM, save that, and then just like that, it renders. It renders verbatim. I didn't have to customize any of this from the web inside of a web view. So not great. You should have held your applause. So this is technically here, and this is nice. I can open this dashboard. I can switch over to other routes. But let me look at that navigation, that web navigation. Oh. Anyway, so I can do that. But it's also cutting off here at the top. It's not great. So let's start, unlike a traditional web view solution where this would be the end of the story and then you have to start over later, here with the use DOM in the React component model, we can just incrementally move over component by component to native. So let's do some of that. Let's go into our Expo Router layout up here. So I've got, I can say if we are targeting the web, this is, by the way, some sneaky new syntax to target from the web without importing platform, then let's just render a slot. Let's just pass through and use the web's navigation. Otherwise, let's use some native tabs to show our content. So we save that, and now we have some native tabs in our project. These are nice because they're a bit more reachable. If your thumb is here, it's hard to get it over here. But let's also fix that pushing. So we'll go over to this other layout, and let's delete this slot, and then we'll use a React Native stack element here. So this is a UI navigation controller behind the scenes on iOS, and on Android it uses fragments. So just like that, now we have this header, and our web header is pushing to the top of it. If we go to the dashboard, we can click on see more, and we have an actual native push animation. We have the breadcrumb. We are not re-implementing that navigation. That is UI kit navigation. In the future, it'll be Swift UI navigation. So pretty awesome right off the bat. But we have this other navigation right here, and it has some other elements. It has a search bar, it has this profile button, and then it has the dashboard. So we don't need the dashboard because we're using the tabs. So let's add a search bar. Super easy to do because we can just use everything that Apple builds in for us. So we can turn on the large title, and look at that. This works really well because the body scrolling of a web view is an actual UI scroll view. So it interacts perfectly. I don't know how well you can see on the screen, but the little scroll bar over here is actually resizing correctly as it's opening. And we can get a better sense for this if we open up the Safari debug tools. Let's just move that down. We can open this up, and we can see our screens right here. And we can interact with the web content. So we see if we resize it, the web view actually resizes for us, and the net size changes. And I mean, this is actually pretty sweet, too, because we could just pop in here, target, create new order, add some exclamation points, save it. We could even come into the network tab. We could reload this. Web has some niceties. I'm not going to lie. There's some pretty sweet things about it. So anyways, I get distracted. We can add a search bar with some search bar options. And now look at that. We've got a native search bar. It opens, closes, animates. And then let's add this header right button right here. And this, because it's using a UI kit, it'll do things like automatically hide that element when we open the search bar. So now we've migrated a lot of, just, it's pretty good. Like, we have just shrunk the effective area of the web view, and you can kind of see where this is going. We can keep shrinking that until it is truly native. So let's get rid of this header bar that we have here. We can go to our shad layout. And what we could do is we could just delete the header. We're not using it anymore, and it goes away. The problem is now on mobile web, the header, if we reload the page, I guess, goes away. And so what we need is, because these are both web content and web bundles, we need a way to say when you're targeting web content that is running in a DOM component and not inside of the browser. So we can do that with this is DOM constant. Maybe that'll change to like a global. But yeah, we can change that, and now it'll come back on mobile web, and then here on our DOM component, it stays away. So now it's starting to look really good. But what we really wanted was some of that native functionality. We want to push a notification when we hit this Create New Order button. So how do we do that? I mean, it's in a web view. It doesn't have access to our native modules. Do we have to like set up an event system like you do with a website and like pass serialized objects around? It's kind of a pain. It's actually pretty easy to use with DOM components. We come back here. All we have to do is just add a notify function to the props. So we'll say notify. Go up to our button right here where it says create new order, and we'll call that notify function. And now if we go to where we're actually using the DOM component instead of our index route, you notice we have a little type error here. So this component is not a DOM component. It's not a child of a DOM component. So this is running truly natively, and it has access to all of our native modules. We can use it to bind whatever Swift you want, any sort of like iOS code to the web view. So in here, we can just say notify. And I've got this pre-made function right here where it says on web, just do an alert. If it's on native, request permissions and schedule a notification. We'll save that, fast refreshes across both boundaries at the same time, hit this button, and just like that, we have native APIs that we can use from our web code. So we're able to, test our theory. Before we commit to switching over to native, we can see, does having a local notification that pop up actually make a difference for us? And if it's like the answer is no, then we can kind of back out. So we have this nice incremental pathway, and it works in lots of different. And we can also pass in any arbitrary value here that's like serializable. So we could say like index, have it be like a number or something. I mean, the functions basically demonstrate that. But you can also pass numbers. So let's see, what else can we do here? Well, actually, I think that's it for now. Let's go back over to the keynote. Actually, you know what? I want to show you how this works. So there's a lot of magic here with the use DOM directive. And a really nice way to understand how this works is to use Expo Atlas. So Atlas is a tool that we just released. The way it works is you pass in an environment variable, Expo unstable Atlas 1, and then in Expo CLI, you can hit Shift-M, go down here, and hit Open Expo Atlas. So we'll just wait for that to launch right here. And then this is the bundle that we just created. So these are all the bundles that ran across all of our devices simultaneously. And we can see all the different bundles up here as well. So we can go in here, and we can see stuff like lucid icons. Like there's a ton of code that will be included. We need some sort of like maybe tree shaking. So we'll go into filter. Let's hide our node modules. And then we can look at this dashboard component. So let's see, what do we got here? Let's go to the index, reload this a little bit, check out dashboard, just try to navigate around real quick. I'm just going to restart this because we did the web build and the native build, so it could get a little like confusing. So we'll just stop the server, do yarn start again, bundle up just one at a time so that we can get a sense for, oh man. The watcher always gets a little bit slower when you're streaming your video, which is, it's a recipe for success, I think. So we can go hit Shift-M, open Expo Atlas. We get the project here. And so now we only have the 2 bundles instead of like all the other web bundles. This will make it a little bit easier to follow. So filter out the node modules, go in here, and then we'll find, this index route. So this is the root component that we have. This is all bundled natively. So what we see on the left side is the JavaScript that we wrote, like the TypeScript. And then on the right side, we see the transformed output. And when we talk about like Hermes adding new language features, what that means is basically like right now we convert this to var. And that's because Hermes doesn't have block scoping. But when it does, then we'll just leave a lot of this code intact. So that's a little fun fact. So we can look at the modules that we've imported here, and we can import our DOM component. And we'll see here on the left side a ton of web code, but on the right side, very little code. So what happens behind the scenes is that we convert this. So this is like importing some code. We pull in a web view. We change the default export to be a web view, and then we give it a proxy, which tells Expo CLI to bundle that component using this file name. And now we can do something really cool. We can swap over to the other dimension, the DOM dimension, and we can see on the right side, all of our web code has been bundled for web. It's still there. And so that's how we create this interop proxy. We do it all automatically. So this is a process that a lot of people do. The purpose of this feature, streamline it. And that's Expo Atlas. Highly recommend you give this a try if you're trying to reduce your bundle size. It's pretty fantastic for understanding why things are included. So now we'll switch back over to the keynote. Let's see. Don't read my notes. They're all private. OK. Let's go right over here. Let's talk a little bit about performance, right? We're using web views, so things need to be performant. Actually, I need to change my screen mirroring settings real quick, and then we'll talk about performance. I know you guys are eager. All right. Let's talk about performance. That was the only part of the line I had memorized, so I needed the notes immediately after. DOM components are great for getting you past the make it work phase, but what happens when you want to get to the make it right and make it fast phases? Is it even possible to make web views fast? And the answer is, like kind of, but mostly no, obviously not. Web views run JavaScript on device, and JavaScript comes with some extra baggage, just like a website, right? We can optimize the JS with minification and bundle splitting, which we do pretty aggressively in Metro. But the user still has to sit and wait for all the JS to parse and compile before it can actually execute. Now, a common misconception is that React Native runs JavaScript on device, when in reality, React Native apps are running optimized Hermes bytecode in production. So that means all the parsing and compilation happens once on the developer's machine, and the app fires up super fast on the user's device, just resulting in super fast build times. The best way to understand this difference in JS behavior is to play some app startup clips and see how they behave. So in an app, all the way over on that side, it renders everything inside of the DOM. We get a white flash between the splash screen and the content actually loading. So play that right here. You notice a bit of a white flash. That's that parsing and the compilation that we're seeing right there. Now, of course, we can delay the splash screen, but ultimately this just means a slower time to first interaction. Now, even after we migrate our navigation over, kind of like what we just did in the demo, there's still a nested delay for the DOM component. So if we play that, you'll see the navigation shows up instantly thanks to Hermes bytecode, but the DOM component takes a bit of time to load. So we'll see the tab bar and the header bar that we moved over, instant, and then the content pops in. And even when it pops in, it has some extra settings, which then shift the whole layout. So of course, thanks to DOM components and this composable React model, we can easily fix this by migrating the entire initial route over to full native views, obtaining optimal startup times incrementally as we need. So if this slow startup time is fine for you, then maybe that's OK. But if you want instant, then you can migrate everything over to native, and it just pops into place. Of course, this is like, it's showing data, so in reality, these will all be like skeleton loaders, but you do want your skeleton loaders to show up fast. So perhaps the best part of DOM components is that they work out of the box with less than zero config. A modern website just requires tons of bundler functionality to work, and DOM components are no different. Expo CLI automatically reuses all of the existing configuration across both platforms. This means that rules, aliases, optimizations, secrets, like the works, right? The part that you want to spend the least amount of time working on is shared everywhere. And any new bundler functionality that we add to Expo CLI works everywhere too. And this includes the brand new Expo tree shaking functionality, which is coming in SDK 52. Yes. So with Expo tree shaking, we can perform a recursive search on all unused dependencies. So in the case of the Lucid icons from earlier, we can search and see that only chevron left and chevron right are used. And then we will remove all other import and export code that was unused inside of the bundle. So this particular example actually has an 87% bundle reduction, which means smaller native binaries, faster web and DOM components, and then just faster native like OTA downloads, right? Everything super fast, right? We're getting into technology, getting so good that it's like feeling like magic territory. So Expo tree shaking will work on all platforms and support a comprehensive set of optimizations for ES modules. So like this isn't just a little tree shaking. It is experimental, but it's a lot. I threw like everything that I could think of at it. So like, even barrel files will like collapse and recursively try to remove themselves. So you can go crazy with the syntax so long as you use import and export. Yeah, early beta testers have just found really incredible results with this, seeing generally around like the 20 to 30% bundle reduction size. So this really makes the actual web offering much better, but it will have benefits to native as well. Just less JavaScript in production, fewer things that can go wrong. So now, with the time that I have left, which is a fair amount of time, I want to do a quick lightning round, show you guys some of the cool things that developers have already done with DOM components since I tweeted it out last week. Yeah, just walk through some of the pain points that this is solving. So let's see. I'll pull the code over. We'll do like a little bit of a side-by-side here. So let's go to our settings route. Just jump in here. And the first thing that we are going to see when I open up, I'm just going to have the simulator right here. Screen settings, right. So pesky. See, I can see it right here. It works on my machine. Like, I don't so yeah, thanks. Oh man, that would have been funny. So yeah, I've got my iPhone right here, and I've got some code over here. And then we can pull in this. What we're going to be doing is just rendering some MDX right off the bat. So anyone who's tried to render Markdown on React Native knows it's kind of a pain to do, especially when you just think about this larger brownfield story of like you start with web, and then your Markdown has things like HTML inside of it, and then it's like maybe just parsing Markdown from like the ground up is pretty easy, but handling all the edge cases where things start to fall apart. So we open this, look at that, a beautiful setting, like the modal navigation transition, because yeah, using UIKit, and it's fantastic. So here we've got some Markdown, right? The Markdown all supports fast refresh. Click, add some exclamation points, save it. You can even see a little like preview of our new fast refresh indicator that we're playing with down there. And let's see, so we've got some tables. I always find it a pain to add like Markdown tables. Next thing we've got syntax highlighting. This has been just such a pain point because you can do some of it, but there's just so much of it, right? Like supporting TXT, changing the language. Maybe we want to change the language over to Swift. Maybe we want to have like GitHub style themes or Dracula style themes. Having to build all those from the ground up before you're sure that people actually want it is kind of a pain. So here we get it for free, and then we can improve the performance later when we validated the idea. Next thing, and this one's really cool, is flowcharts with React Flow. So here, these actually work pretty nicely because they have a very controlled scroll. So you can't detect, like you would expect the scrolling to not work exactly like native scroll views with all the bounces and stuff. So we can select, and I mean, you can see all these like bars moving around. This took just like a couple minutes to add. And then, we can rewrite it to something like, I guess, React Native Skia later, but in many ways, this is like it's pretty good. So you can build like various CI interactions that people can do on mobile. Another thing that we saw was this emoji picker, which is cool because we're just pulling this in verbatim. It's not even in a DOM component, right? Like any library, and this isn't how this one works in particular. It's because the wrapping parent is a DOM component. But in the future, library authors can also just push DOM components inside of their project to make migration easier for developers as well. So we can pull in this, if you want to do something like remap an emoji in particular. Like, this is something that I'm seeing people doing online now. So you could do something like that. Another one, which is ridiculous. I didn't know most of these web libraries even existed when I wrote the DOM components feature. People just tweeted them at me later. Is this image cropper, this React mobile crop? I mean, it's pretty fantastic. Then we've got like the rotation here, and we can like flip the content. Another one, 3D scenes with Three.js. Now, we do have Expo GL, and there's the new React Native Web GPU, which is fantastic. But something that's really nice about using Three.js inside of something like a DOM component is that web views are controlled by the operating system. And so the operating system, when your device starts to like run out of memory or when it's in low power mode, they will automatically be throttled the frame rate down. So if you have an ambient effect, like maybe some 3D floating globe behind an authentication page, you don't want to have to like know about throttling the frame rate down of that automatically to save resources. So anything that's not like immediately important, good use case for. And then I think the final boss, this is one that we just get so many recommendations about. So many people are questioning it at Expo. Like, how do you get this to work? And that is rich text editing. React Native WebView is one of the most popular React Native libraries, and I'm pretty sure it's mostly because of rich text editing and having HTML content that you need to run. So here, we can just pass it a string of HTML inside of our component. We can like select the content. We can add whatever custom controls we want. It even supports like this, the built-in formatter, so we can turn things like bold. And yeah, not bad. Bunch of content. And then all of this is, each one of these is individually its own DOM component. So we could start migrating away from what we have here already, right? We could delete the settings route like this. And comment this other one. So what we've got here, I'm change the import, that's nice. What we've got here is I've just changed it to be a native scroll view. So no more DOM component here, but I still want my rich text editor at least. But I also want to show like a map view. So now I can save this, it'll refresh, and I have my map view, but I'm still able to use my DOM component. So composition. I mean, I mostly just showed you how a React component works, but you get the idea. All right, so let us switch back and end this presentation out. All right, showed you all that stuff. It was all neat, and it's in this nice, cool, controlled environment. But what I thought would actually be really cool is if I published it to the App Store, that 5 to 15-hour process. So you can scan this. You can run it on test flight if you like. You can send me issues if you find them. And then I also published it to the web here, so it's on domcom.netlify.app. So you can open in the shad CN version and then see what just a standard React website feels like. I don't know. So yeah, I left some of the DOM components in, so I'll leave this up for a second. People can try it out, and I'll pretend like I wrote out some other things. All right, cool. And you can also use DOM components today. So they are available in a canary build of Expo. The best way to try them is in the code base from the example, which is available on GitHub right now. We're actively fixing bugs, improving performance, so your mileage may vary until SDK 52 next month when these are actually properly released. And I want to clarify, like, I can't be clear about this enough. If you have an existing native app that is already native, you should not regress back into the web. This is primarily for having a website and migrating to native. That direction is the direction that we are trying to move you in. So just want to make that clear here. Because web is pretty nice. It's very tempting. Anyways, if you liked what you just saw and you're interested joining my team, reach out to me on X. I'm Evan Bacon, and this has been Incremental Migration with Expo DOM Components. Thank you.